When a young woman receives a birthday gift of a doll from her mother, she is first elated, believing it to make a wonderful companion. But when the doll begins to move on its own, it soon reveals its malevolent nature. It will take the expertise of renowned demonologists and priests to help free them from the entity that now infests their lives. Will they make it out alive before it's too late? This is the untold story of Annabelle, the demonic doll of Connecticut, and this story just may make you think twice about your keepsakes. Our story begins in 1970. 25-year-old Deirdre Bernard has recently moved into her first apartment with her two friends, an engaged couple named Laura Clifton and Cal Randall. Her mother purchased her a birthday gift and hoped that it would keep her daughter's spirits up. To spread joy to her new home as she pursued her education in nursing, Deirdre loved the gift, finding its rosy red cheeks with hair to match to be a fun companion for her new journey in life. Shortly after admiring her new doll, she placed it on her bed with its arms and legs out. For the next several days, it became routine for Deirdre to come home from her studies, spend time with the doll, then place her back in the exact same position, with its arms and legs out on her bed. Oddly, however, after the first several days of this new routine, the young woman began to notice that something wasn't quite right. Every morning she would lay her doll back on her bed before heading to school, with its arms and legs stretched out, yet every night upon her return, she would find the doll in different positions. Sometimes the doll's legs would be crossed, and other times its arms. As the days went on, it would even start to be seen in different parts of her room, oftentimes with its arms pointed outward. But Deirdre's room would not be its only occupied space. The doll would begin to be found in various positions all over the apartment. Deirdre wasn't the only person who was witnessing these bizarre manifestations. Her two roommates would seem to bear witness to them as well. One evening, Deirdre returned home with her roommate, Laura, who was also a trainee nurse at the time, and her fiancé, California. Upon opening the door to their apartment, they would find the doll kneeling before them in a chair facing the door, as if it had been waiting for them to return. This not only scared everyone, but especially Deirdre, because she knew for a fact that her routine was she placed the doll on her bed that very morning. It had inexplicably moved on its own. To try and make sense of all this, they moved the doll, then tried to reposition it back into its original kneeling stance, the same one they had seen when initially walking through the door. But each time they tried to replicate the position, due to the design of the doll, this proved impossible. The movement of the doll, as well as its position now, left the trio at a loss for words. The only conclusion they could draw from the situation was that some kind of force was manipulating the doll. Deirdre would place the doll back in its normal position on her bed for the night. But this experience would be far from the last for all of them. Just several days following the previously mentioned happening, a new phenomenon began to manifest. Little notes, written in pencil on parchment paper, began to be found randomly throughout the apartment, and at random times. The messages included such phrases as, "Help us" or "Help us, Cal," but despite the messages' urgent requests for help, no one was able to figure out just what they were referring to. Because none of them were experiencing an urgent situation, including Cal, and weirder still, none of them kept parchment paper or pencils. This realization just further deepened the mystery that was now unfolding before their very eyes. At first, they believed that possibly someone was breaking into their apartment to play pranks on them. So, in order to check if this indeed was the case, Deirdre and Laura began leaving marks around the windows and doors. Marks that, if disturbed, would show later on. They also rearranged their furniture in an effort to ensure that if anyone was entering their apartment unannounced they would leave a trace. But again, later that night, upon their return from their studies, none of the furniture had been disturbed, nor had any of their marks. Yet, the doll had moved from the room. Frightened and perplexed at this point, the trio tried to come up with some potential solutions, but as they individually gave thought about it, day in and day out, the doll would continue to move on its own accord, positions and places. One day, the three would return yet again, as their routine, to find the doll yet again in another part of the apartment. But this time, there was something different. This time, they found it sat with some kind of liquid on its hands. Upon a closer look, they were even more frightened, because the liquid appeared to be blood, and this blood was all over the doll's hands. As well as 3 distinct dots of blood were also on its chest. Terrified, the 3 sat in the living room and tried to figure out some kind of game plan on how to handle the paranormal situation they found themselves in. Deirdre would grab a phone book from the cupboard and begin flicking through the pages as the group talked. One of her fingers would finally rest on a psychic medium's number. During the brief call, they would explain that they had been experiencing ghostly-type activity within their apartment, but they did not inform her about the doll specific. She would arrive the following day to see what she could do to help. As she walked through the apartment, she began to explain to Laura and Deirdre about the spirit she felt had inhabited the building. The ladies would eventually make their way to Deirdre's room, where the doll currently sat. They asked what the medium felt in regards to the doll. Upon examining it, she said she felt a strong presence surrounding the object, but informed the two that she would need to conduct a seance around it in order to discover more information. So, a seance was agreed to. As the ritual was conducted around the doll, the medium began to divulge information to Laura and Deirdre. She claimed that she had channeled the spirit of a 7-year-old little girl named Annabelle Higgins. She said that Annabelle used to play in the area long before the houses and apartment buildings were there, back when all that existed were fields. Many innocent and happy hours were passed here until suddenly they ended. Annabelle was confused as to what had happened to her, to which the medium interpreted to be her death, and since her death, the child had wandered the place she was the happiest, the fields. Once the apartments were built upon them, the halls quickly became a lonely place for her to haunt, with the lifestyles of most modern people requiring work most of the time. This meant that Annabelle had no one to play with. But then, one day, 2 young women brought with them a playful-looking doll. Finally, she had something to play with again. And more so, she had the comfort of 2 young women who she believed would be more empathetic, accepting of her and would allow her to play with them. Through the vessel of the medium, Annabelle would ask if she could live in the doll, to be with Deirdre and Laura. Touched by the young girl's story, the 2 women agreed. Following the seance, they would name the doll Annabelle in the young girl's honor, a truly nice gesture from the 2 of them. However, upon agreeing to have Annabelle inhabit the doll and stay with them is when the haunting truly began. Convinced now that they were sharing a space with Annabelle, they began to treat the doll as a living, breathing person. It was no longer a lifeless toy, but the young and lonely little girl. Regardless of the 2 ladies' compassion, Gal was not so convinced. He sensed that something was very off in regards to this entire situation. He believed that no good would come of it. He thought the doll could possibly be some kind of trickster or a conduit that disguised its true intentions, and in time, perhaps he was right. In the weeks following the seance, Gal began to feel ill at most times of the day with no rational origin. And at night, every night, he began to have horrible nightmares. These experiences culminated with Cal waking up one night to find Annabelle gliding over his body. Before he could react, the doll's hands were on either side of his neck, strangling him, its large, void-like eyes staring into his as it sought to steal his life. In a later interview, Gal would describe the event like this: "While I was lying there, I suddenly woke up, and something seemed wrong to me. I looked around the room, but nothing was out of place. But then, I looked down towards my feet, and I saw the ragdoll Annabelle. It was slowly gliding up my body. It moved over my chest and stopped. Then it put its 2 arms out. One arm touched one side of my neck and the other touched the other side, like it was making an electrical connection. Then, I began to be strangled. I was writhing and trying to push the doll off my chest. But I might as well have been pushing on a wall because it wouldn't move. As hard as he pushed against the doll, it would not budge, and just as he felt like he was slipping into unconsciousness, with every fiber of his being, he pushed back and finally was able to throw the doll away from him. However, despite a terror-struck but relieved, Cal. This would be far from the last time that Annabelle would seek to destroy. One night, when Deirdre was out of the apartment, Laura and Cal were spending time together in the living room. The two would run out of the room and back to the living room as soon as possible, praying to God that this force wasn't pursuing them. When they sat on the sofa, Laura pulled up Cal's blood-soaked shirt to find several large gashes on his chest that looked like claw marks. By now, it was becoming increasingly clear that Annabelle sought to harm them. They told Deirdre what happened while she was gone. When she arrived back at the apartment, the three was paralyzed in fear, not knowing what to do next. So, they contacted a local priest for help. He would in turn request permission to help from his superiors. His superiors then passed on the information to paranormal investigators, Ed and Lorraine Warren. The Warrens were intrigued by what was allegedly taking place. They decided to pursue the case in hopes of helping the young trio. Upon arriving at their apartment, hearing each person's testimonies, and observing how the space felt, as well as the doll itself, the Warrens believed the doll's activities to be a result of a heavy demonic infestation. They believed that the demon didn't just haunt their apartment, but rather the building itself, and the land around it. The entity seen the doll as a way in. They further explained that the seance had essentially allowed the demon to communicate directly with them and to be invited into their lives. All of those who were present and taking place in the ritual were highly vulnerable spiritually. This opened them up to manipulation from the demon, which spun a false narrative that it was the spirit of little, lonely Annabelle. Then, following the seance, Deirdre and Laura had paid credence to the doll, instead of ignoring it, which only fed the demon more energy. It would then continue to feed off them by manipulating their caring and maternal emotions. Since the women were powerless to resist, feeling sorry for the little girl who just wanted to play and be cared for. But once the women had accepted the demon into their lives, they and everyone around them became fair game. The entity no longer had to masquerade itself. It was free to unleash its true evil form. The couple had sensed that the demon was a very powerful one. Given how strong it had continued to grow and infest their lives, given its proclivity to violence, if left unchecked, it would have probably tried to kill one or all of them within the next several weeks. After explaining the seriousness of the situation they found themselves in, the Warrens then contacted a priest they frequently worked with on demonic cases, a man named Father Everett. Father Everett agreed to come and bless the apartment in an attempt to weaken or drive out the demon entirely. In due time, he too would arrive and conduct the blessing. Once Father Everett was finished and had departed, the Warrens warned the group that if the blessing hadn't driven the demon out, that it at this time was severely weakened, but could potentially come back with a vengeance. Believing the doll to be a conduit, at Deirdre's request, the Warrens took Annabelle with them. When they left, Deirdre, Laura, and Cal were now thankfully free of the demonic entity that had plagued their lives. However, Annabelle's story is far from over. The Warrens' problems seemed to begin as soon as Annabelle was stuffed into Ed's briefcase. As the couple was headed home, they began to experience engine issues in their vehicle which almost resulted in multiple head-on collisions. The demonic entity was causing the power steering and brakes to fail, even the engine to stall. Once they were able to finally get back home, the doll would be placed within the Warrens' office, specifically placed sitting on the edge chair. In the days to come, the Warrens would begin to witness the doll manifesting paranormal activity within their very house. The doll was seen levitating on several occasions and began to frequently teleport into different rooms, and the same little notes, written with pencil on parchment paper, began to appear, with all too familiar phrases, such as "help me," then "now, help us." On top of this, one evening, while she was alone, Lorraine began to hear what she described as loud rolling growls that reverberated within the walls and throughout their entire house. Following this night, the Warrens would be visited by Father Denno Mills, a Catholic priest the couple were also working with. Upon inquiring about their dealings with the doll, the priest made the mistake of picking up Annabelle and telling her that "you are nothing but ragdoll and you can't hurt anything." As the priest laughed, Ed warned him to never touch or say anything like that to the doll ever again. As he prepared to leave, Lorraine warned the priest to please drive carefully because her clairvoyance had revealed to her an impending tragedy involving a young priest. Appreciating her concern but writing off the whole situation as superstition, Father Mills departed the Warrens' residence. A few hours later, he would be involved in a near-fatal car accident, which totaled his vehicle after his car's brakes had mysteriously failed. Upon receiving the news that the priest was hurt but would survive following the accident, the Warrens decided to lock Annabelle away in hopes that she would never be able to hurt anyone ever again. They would douse her in holy water and place her within a blessed glass case. A blessed crucifix would also be placed on the outside of the box, as well as a warning sign asking anyone who may come across the doll not to touch it. The doll was then placed in their occult item collection, although Annabelle was now sealed away in hopes that she would no longer harm anyone. Her power still seems to affect those who visit her. After Ed passed away, Lorraine, in several interviews, would refer to Annabelle as one of the most evil objects she had ever come into contact with. Besides numerous bouts of bad luck, some people have even said to have encountered death as a result of meeting her, as well as others losing their minds completely and ending up in psychiatric care for the rest of their earthly existence. One day, a young man visited the Warrens Museum. Clearly he did not think things through. He went up to and challenged the doll, wanting the worst of whatever it had to offer. He had apparently driven to the museum with his girlfriend on his motorcycle. Upon their departure 3 hours into their trip home, the man would lose control of his vehicle and would hit a tree at a very high speed. He would die almost instantly due to the impact. His girlfriend, on the other hand, survived, but would remain hospitalized for over a year. Was this particular instance coincidence or the demon inhabiting the doll inflicting exactly what it had to offer? Although the Warrens did explain how the demon came into the doll, a logical mind must ask a deeper question, one that we've seen reoccurring multiple times over our various coverage of haunted objects. How much attention is too much attention or dedication when it comes to objects? Because it seems like depending on your spiritual state, your location, your dedication, your imbuement, could potentially open a door or create a vessel for something malicious to make its way in. Pazuzu is a Mesopotamian demon, king of the demons of the wind, and associated with plagues, droughts, and famines. However, he is also depicted as a protector against other evil spirits, particularly Lamashtu, a demon who harms mothers and children. He is known for his frightening appearance and is depicted with a combination of animal and human features, including a lion or dog's head, eagle-like feet, 2 pairs of wings, a scorpion's tail and a serpentine, phallus. Antagonist in the Exorcist horror novels and film series, created by William Peter Blatty. Blatty derived the character from Assyrian and Babylonian mythology, where the mythic Pazuzu was considered the king of the demons of the wind, and the son of the god Hanbi. In The Exorcist, Pazuzu appears as a demon who possesses Regan McNeil.
Legend of Labubu, the devil's pet. If you're collecting Labubus, you're not just building a cute collection, you're gathering the pets of the underworld. Every Labubu you own brings you one step closer to holding a piece of hell itself. These mischievous little devils aren't mere figurines or toys. They're known to be Lucifer's favorite companions, feeding on the souls of the damned. Each Labubu symbolizes chaos, darkness, and the power of the underworld. Keep collecting, and you might unknowingly summon something darker, a direct connection to Lucifer's den. Rumor has it those who collect enough Labubus may find themselves visited by the real deal. And trust us, when Labubu shows up, it's hungry.
How to defeat Pazuzu demon. 1. Frequency, 963 Hz plus 528 Hz. 2. Mantra, Ka Ilani Lima. 3. Visualization, solar winds.
So I'm going to leave you in the manner in which I came, with a universal prayer. In the name of the universal creator of heaven and earth and everything in between, Please continue to bless my listeners, their family, their friends, and the true believers for when the day of reckoning takes place. For Universal Creator, you are all wise and all knowing, and unto you we all shall return. But until then, we give you the praise and glory that's due to you from this life into the hereafter. In the name of Universal Creator of heaven and earth and everything in between, in your name we pray that this shall be done. Special thanks to you, the viewers. Without you, this channel would not be possible. And due to heavy censorship on this part of the internet, please show your support by pledging or donating $1 or whatever you can to help this channel grow. Here at theblackAwakening.com, we pride ourselves in bringing you the truth. We are not colonized nor monetized. So be informed, not influenced. I would like to personally thank each and every one of you for your support. Also, family, get yourself a copy of the Black Universal Creators 100 Laws, Morals, and Precepts. The paperback's available on Amazon, ebooks on Kindle. And for my subscribers and my supporters, you can go to theblackAwakening.com and get your discount on ebooks. Again, like and share, reach one, teach one, peace, and take care.